Jude Deveraux had it all: fame, fortune, a loyal readership that made her one of the most successful romance authors in America. But behind the scenes, she was crumbling, grieving the death of her young son and searching for answers in a world that suddenly made no sense. Jude turned to a woman who promised clarity, healing, and hope. What she got instead was a nightmare, one that would span 2 decades, cost her over $17 million, and nearly destroy her. But this isn't just a story of deception. It's about a woman who fought back and helped take down one of the most prolific psychic fraud rings in U.S. history. In 2005, Jude Deveraux's world shattered when her 8-year-old son, Sam, died in a tragic accident. The loss was unbearable, and Jude found herself in a vulnerable, desperate state. Friends and therapists couldn't reach her. She needed something else, someone who could help her connect beyond the physical world. That someone appeared in the form of Rose Marks, a woman introduced to Jude as a spiritual advisor. Marks didn't advertise her services on TV or operate out of neon-lit storefronts. She worked through referrals, often with wealthy, high-profile clients. She claimed to come from a long line of Romanian psychics, offering spiritual cleansings, aura realignments, and emotional healing through a blend of mysticism and intuition. And she didn't just cold read, she studied her marks, learning about their relationships, losses, and fears. Jude wasn't her first client, but she would become one of the most lucrative. Rose Marks didn't scam people out of thousands in a single blow. She was methodical. She groomed her clients over time, building what psychologists now call a compliance trap. It started small. Rose told Jude that her grief had disrupted her spiritual balance. She convinced her that Sam's spirit was trapped in a dark realm, and only spiritual intervention could help him move on. The cost: a few $1,000s for special rituals, crystals, and candles. Jude paid it without hesitation. Then came the next stage: financial sacrifice. Rose told Jude that material wealth was clouding her spiritual energy, and that she needed to, temporarily, hand over her money and valuables so Rose could spiritually cleanse them. They would be returned after the energy was right. It escalated from there. Over the next 17 years, Jude Deveraux gave Rose Marks more than $17 million in money, jewelry, real estate holdings, and even manuscripts. Anytime Jude expressed doubt, Rose had an answer. She claimed their souls were intertwined, that this was destiny. She even fabricated spirit guides who would speak through her to manipulate Jude further. And Jude, still grieving, still trusting, believed it. Jude wasn't the only one caught in Rose Marks' web. The scam was part of a multi-generational psychic crime family that included her children and other relatives. They operated out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and scammed dozens of victims over decades, collectively raking in over $40 million. They used code names. They kept detailed notes on each client's psychological triggers, and they were careful, very careful, not to leave paper trails. Their client list included lawyers, business people, and other celebrities. Many stayed silent, ashamed. Jude, at first, was no different. But eventually, after losing nearly everything, she began to see through the lies. In 2007, she cut ties with Rose, but the damage was done. Emotionally, financially, spiritually, she was broken. But something inside her snapped. She realized that staying silent only protected the predator. She decided to act. By 2008, Jude Deveraux had reached a turning point. After nearly 2 decades of financial and emotional manipulation, she realized something had to change. She'd lost over $17 million to a woman who claimed to be guiding her through grief, but who had been carefully draining her of everything. She decided to speak up. Jude contacted the FBI, not expecting much, but what she didn't know was that the agency was already investigating the Marks family. Other victims had started coming forward quietly. Jude's story, detailed, documented, and credible, was exactly what the case needed to move forward. She turned over everything: emails and notes from her sessions, receipts for payments, information about the Marks family's methods. And she went a step further. She agreed to help the investigation. Working with federal agents, Jude participated in recorded calls and meetings, giving investigators direct evidence of how Rose Marks operated. As the investigation widened, more victims came forward. Some had lost six figures, others millions. All of them told a similar story: promises of healing, threats of spiritual danger, and pressure to, temporarily, hand over money to cleanse their energy. By 2011, after years of quiet investigation, the FBI conducted a major raid on several Marks family properties in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Agents seized cash, handwritten client records, luxury items, and notes outlining how to manipulate clients emotionally. It was one of the most significant psychic fraud cases the FBI had ever handled, and Jude Deveraux' role was central to it. In 2013, Rose Marks went to trial in federal court. She was charged with 14 counts, including fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. The prosecution alleged that she had orchestrated a long-running scam disguised as spiritual counseling, and that she had exploited people during their most vulnerable moments. Jude Deveraux took the stand as a key witness. Calm and composed, she explained how Rose had slowly gained her trust, especially after the death of her young son. She described how, over time, she had been convinced to part with millions of dollars to clear spiritual blockages and help her son's soul find peace. The prosecution presented emails, bank records, and undercover recordings, some of which captured Rose making false promises about returning the money or warning of spiritual consequences if Jude stopped paying. Other victims testified too, sharing eerily similar experiences. Each story added weight to the claim that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a coordinated, long-running fraud. The defense argued that the money had been willingly given, and that psychic services fall under protected speech. But the evidence showed a pattern of manipulation, not belief. In the end, the jury found Rose Marks guilty on all 14 counts. She was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $17.8 million in restitution. Jude was in the courtroom when the verdict was read. For her, it wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability. After years of silence and loss, she had taken back her power. Jude Deveraux never got all her money back. Much of it was long gone, laundered through casinos, offshore accounts, and fake businesses. But she got her life back. She returned to writing. She began speaking publicly about grief, vulnerability, and the long-term scars of psychological manipulation. In interviews, she has said that while she'll never forget the betrayal, she refuses to be defined by it. What happened to Jude Deveraux could happen to anyone. That's the terrifying truth. Intelligence, wealth, and success are not shields against emotional predators. In fact, they're often the very targets. Jude Deveraux lost millions of dollars, her peace of mind, and years of her life to a woman who claimed to be a healer. But she got something far more valuable in return: clarity and the courage to speak out. Her story is a reminder that grief makes us vulnerable, but silence makes us powerless, and that sometimes the only way to fight darkness is to expose it. If this story shocked you, subscribe to Unlocked Confidential for more cases where the truth was stranger and darker than fiction. Have you ever felt manipulated by someone you trusted? Share your story below. You never know who you might help.